All right, welcome everyone. I'm going to go ahead and get us started here. This is the East Contra Costa Fire Protection District Town Hall meeting for the City of Oakley. My name is Brian Oftedal. I'm the board president for East Contra Costa Fire Protection District. Thank you everyone for taking the time to listen this evening, and for those that are shared the video and or join in later, thank you for taking the time to spend with us to learn about your local fire protection district. This evening we have a couple of special guests. We have Mayor Kevin Helmick and we have City Manager Brian Montgomery this evening. They will be part of our question and answer period, but at the same time I would like to acknowledge that I have noticed that Council Member Clara Laura as well as Council Member Sue Higgins are also on the call with us. But due to, I guess, not getting into any violations with Brown Act procedures, Kevin Helmick will be corresponding with folks if they have any direct City of Oakley conversation. As always, our fire chief, Brian Helmick, who I believe works 24/7, I don't think he takes a day off, is with us. And after brief presentations and some housekeeping items, we'll get started. But first of all, thank you again for being with us. Just going to walk through a couple of those housekeeping items. Depending on what computer you're on, there are some raise hand features. I know on my iPad that I'm using right now, in the top right-hand corner, I've got 3 dots that says more. And if I click on those, it gives me an option to raise my hand. I know on some devices, it's you click on participants in the lower part of the screen or the lower part of the desktop under names, you'll see a spot where you can raise your hand. There are folks that are also watching the gallery view. So if you're unable to do that, you can physically raise your hand and we'll get somebody to unmute you. And also from a telephone, *9 should unmute you. This evening, we're going to mute everyone except for the panelists. And if you do want to speak, after you raise your hand and it's your turn, we'll go ahead and unmute you. With that said, I do have another special guest this evening. I have Angela Lowry here that I asked to join us this evening. And Angela is a City of Oakley resident. She is the president-elect of Kiwanis Club of Oakley. And she's going to share a brief experience about her experiences and her involvement with our fire district. And just personally, I had the opportunity to meet Angela in 2016, City of Oakley residents. And I hope that once this COVID-19 shelter in place or social distancing is over, we can get back to the leadership academy, which the City of Oakley hosts. They normally do that about once or twice a year. Angela and I in 2016 had an opportunity to attend a roughly 7 or 8 week leadership academy, and that's where we met and started getting to know each other and actively involved in the community and are always running into each other. So I'd asked if she could join us this evening, and very happy for you to be here. So without further ado, Angela, if you wouldn't mind just taking a couple of minutes and just telling us a little bit about yourself and anything about the fire district that you may.
Well, thank you very much, Brian. Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to speak tonight. I don't pretend I'm an expert on fire services. As Brian said, I have had the need for fire services. I can see people on the call tonight that I know, and I think that if you know me, you know I'm very passionate about Oakley, and I'm very passionate about the services we get from our many different government agencies and how we support each other as residents and homeowners, and whether you're renting or however you come to be here in Oakley, that we're all here together and we're just trying to have a good quality of life together. If you don't know me, perhaps you've seen me speak at city council meetings or at Iron House, Diablo Water. I write letters to the editor. I'm a lead on Nextdoor. So I'm very engaged when it comes to what's going on in our city. I don't pretend I know everything. but I try to get involved. And like most of us, there's things that are happening that I'm very passionate about. Some things I'm just like, interested, but I don't have a voice in or don't get involved in. And others, I just try to find information the best way that I can. And sometimes it's a little hard, particularly now during COVID, when we're not able to meet each other and really find reliable sources of information. And a lot of us are relying on Zoom or social media. And I think that whilst, we've got lots of ways to connect, I feel personally there's a need for quality communications and quality connections. And I will say, also as a community relations specialist myself, that the fire district has really increased their connections and their efforts to connect with us, their carefully, because I believe that the fire chief does understand his role as the chief. I don't envy him his role. He has many hats on, whether it's dealing with elected officials or the public or staffing, his board. It's a huge job, and I do have respect for him on that. He gained enormous respect from me when I started to see him directly dialoguing with customers on social media and giving his phone number and trying to answer the just large mirage of misinformation, or just people out there that just had passions but were perhaps relying on sources of information that were just not factual. And I have to just recognize the chief for that. And I will tell you, I was quite impressed with that. I've worked in government or for government and in government roles for many years, and I know often it's hard when you've got a young family and you've got work and you've got staffing and everything. So thank you for doing that and taking time to do that. I moved to Oakley in 2009, and like many, I love the quality of life that we have here. And maybe sometimes I'll admit I even take it for granted a little bit. We have lovely weather here and we have good services. I believe we have government employees who care, and we have a lot of people who are involved. As you said, Brian, we were involved at the Leadership Academy, and just a great group of people. And I know that we're not the only ones. It's been a source of leadership training and connection for many people in our community. And if you're on tonight, I do encourage you to join that if you get that opportunity. I will tell you though, I had an experience that I didn't think I'd ever have, and quite honestly, I hope I never have again, and that was the need to call the fire department one day. I need to be sensitive what I say with regards to an issue with PG&E, and there was a gas, for want of a better word, a gas leak outside my home, and I wasn't aware of it, and the leak had been going on for some time, and it was only when I could smell the gas, and I tried to ask my neighbor to come over, and he was like, yes, you better call PG&E. I couldn't get through to PG&E. I tried several times, and in the end, again, I'm not an expert, I'm not a fire marshal or anything, but I just know that when there's gas involved in your home, it's very, very dangerous. And it's not just dangerous for my home, but it's dangerous for my neighbors and for other families and people that I care about in my community. So I have to tell you, perhaps you're on a call here tonight, and like me, you've stood on the pavement in front of your home, petrified, just really scared. And in the distance, you hear that siren, and you know that they're coming to help you. And you just hope that they get here. And then you see that big, beautiful red truck rounding that corner and coming down the street, and just knowing that they're there for you and for your family. Fortunately, they were able to help me. And I will say today that it's my belief that my home is still standing, that I am safe, that my family is safe, because the fire department came. I have to tell you, I was just really amazed at I don't know, I was just really impressed with how professional the fire department were. I know it's kind of for them every day to deal with this, but I was very scared of what was going to happen, and they just spoke to me in a way that was very caring, and I just really appreciated the professionalism. And I respect that I feel that it's a vocation for these firefighters, and I have deep, deep respect for them. And I have to be honest and say that in the last 10, nearly 11 years that I've lived here, there's been a lot of talk about fire going on in our community. Some I've listened to, some I've been, confused about and I've not really understood. But perhaps it's those huge fires in Northern California, or perhaps in my homeland of Australia. If you watched it earlier this year, that reduced me to tears when I just saw millions of acres of land that were just homes that were burned, animals, millions of animals, native animals that just died because of fire. And I think it really resonated with me and increased my understanding that I need to educate myself about really what's going on with fire here in my community. I know there's a lot of history. I say I've been here 11 years. I know there's people that have been here a very longer time than that. I know that, you know, there's been a lot of dialogue, a lot of questions. I particularly appreciated a letter to the editor, or an op-ed perhaps, that the fire chief wrote a couple of years ago, talking about answering the question of why we don't have volunteers and why we can't go back to a volunteer. And I'll be honest, I had asked that question myself after seeing a lot of information online. And I felt the chief really captured and really answered in that very succinct communication to me of why that was not an option for us at this time. I really feel that, you know, I feel like we need to have very honest conversations. I think the chief and others, for example, this open house today, we've got opportunities to have dialogue. Like many, I'm sitting on the panel and I'm speaking today, but I feel like I'm standing with others, the other resident homeowners and other people who are in our community, trying to really get a better understanding of what's happening. Understand where, you know, where does the buck stop figuratively and realistically with the city versus the fire department? What my expectations can be, what I need to do. I live in a home here where I have very high special assessments. I've moved to a community where there's a lot of growth still happening. But what do we really need to do to support our fire department? I was at Grocery Outlet the other day, and as I was leaving with my groceries, a group of firefighters came in, and I just wanted to connect with them, and I didn't know what to say. If you're like me, I've been watching the increase of the need for fire services here, whether it's accidents or fires or whatever's going on with our fire department. And as I approached these four firefighters, our firefighters, I just wanted to say thank you. And I have to tell you, they were so humble. And it just reminded me that when we talk about fire services, we talk about a special district government agency, and we talk about leadership, and we talk about management, but we're also talking about these amazing firefighters that I believe get up every day with the sole purpose is to protect our homes and to have our communities safe. And I was just really appreciative that I got a chance to connect with them on that. So I think I'm making a commitment today. I really feel out of COVID, I feel a lot of positiveness has come within our community. I've seen online people in need, and I've just been so proud to be a member of the Oakley community where people have stepped up, whether it's for food or diapers or needs or anything like that. And I believe at the core of our great community is the ability for us to come together and to solve problems and to have really meaningful conversation and dialogue and to have factual dialogue. I feel like we've got a lot of ways to connect, as I said, but you know, where do we get that information? And I want to recognize that anytime I've reached out to the chief, anytime I've reached out to the board chair, Alfendale, you know, they've returned my calls or they've answered my emails, and I really greatly appreciate that. So what I hope tonight is we have the opportunity moving forward to, for want of a better expression, you know, let's not get bogged down on what's happened. How do we come together and really have meaningful dialogue about what is the current state of fire services? What do we need? How do we get them? What can we do as a community to help? How do we need to add our voices? How do we support this, whether it's at, you know, Sacramento or whether it's in DC? What can we do? So I just wanted to say thank you and for asking me to speak today. I don't pretend I have all the answers, but again, I am one person, and I say with great sincerity, it's my hope that you never have to call the fire department, but if you do, I want you to know that these are quality people, these are quality services, and it's something that we must have as a community for our families, for our schools, just for our community as we move forward and we continue to grow and we just continue to prosper economically, socially, environmentally. So thank you very much for including me today.
Well said. Thank you, Angela. We definitely appreciate you being here this evening and spending some time with us, and definitely getting deep into your personal experiences with us and sharing that.
Thank you.
I've enjoyed getting to know you and running into you at different farmers markets and national night out and neighborhood watch meetings, and you're definitely active, and I see your name popping up all over social media. So I appreciate you being as involved. We definitely need more individuals out there like you. I definitely seen the gallery view. There's a lot of people on this evening that are just as active, and definitely appreciate the community involvement. So thank you again.
Thank you, Chair Alfendale.
All right, without further ado, we're gonna bring Chief Brian Helmick on this call. And Chief Brian Helmick has been with the fire district for roughly 2 decades or so. And I'll let him do his self-introduction, but the fire board ended up bringing him on as the interim, and then fully brought him in as the fire chief roughly 3 years ago. And he started running, and he hasn't stopped. And he just, as I said when we started out, he's going 24/7. As Angela commented, he shares his personal cell phone, which sometimes makes me nervous that folks are going to be blowing up his cell phone, and he's not going to be able to get through the strategic plan, implementation action plan, all of his annual goals. But he's proven me wrong that he's able to multitask and he's able to handle that. And we're really lucky to have him on board. He's a go-getter. He's pushing hard with the rest of the team that he's built, and the relationships among administration, the local union, 1230, the fire board. I think that there's really a great group of individuals that see the problem and are really working well together. We've got a lot of work in front of us, years worth of work in front of us, stuff that should have been done 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. And we're slowly but surely chipping away at it. And this, our situation didn't happen overnight. We're not going to be able to change it overnight. I know there's a lot of folks that are out there that are frustrated with this situation. It seems like there's a lot of easy fixes. And I can tell you, and Chief Helmick will tell you, these are not easy fixes, but we are chipping away at it, and looking forward to the Chief's presentation and then getting into the question and answer. So without further ado, Chief Helmick, if you'd join us, and the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, President Oftedal, and I just want to confirm that you can hear me loud and clear. Am I coming across all right? We get a lot of nodding heads and thumbs up.
Good.
So if I can just make sure I get a little bit of feedback, if everything's muted, that'd be helpful too. I'd appreciate it. And Dawn, if you want to throw the presentation up, that'd be helpful too. So as we're pulling up the presentation, good evening. My name is Brian Helmick, and I have the privilege of serving as the Fire Chief of the East Contra Costa Fire Protection District. I do not take my position here lightly. Outside of my family, there's absolutely nothing that takes more of my time, and anyone that knows me personally could testify to that. And we definitely have a lot of challenges here tonight, and not just tonight, but overall. And I appreciate everyone taking the time to be here, as I know that many of you have very competing schedules. I say this a lot of the time, that we as a community, there's a lot of competing interests, and there's a lot of different things that can take our time and energies away. And the fact that you're taking time to look in and try to understand your fire district is really important to me. I have been here since the beginning of the district. I was actually one of the first employees that was hired back in 2002 as a firefighter. I'll talk a little bit about our history of our fire district. I was previously a reserve firefighter out in Moraga. Graduated high school. I was privileged to get hired right out of high school. I spent my whole career in the fire service. Something I love and I'm passionate about. I actually came out here in the 1990s to gain a little bit of experience, just to be able to go back to serve the rest of my career where I thought I'd be in Moraga, which is now Moraga Rinda Fire. But I fell in love with our communities. I have a bond with all of our members, and I see the challenges that we have, and I'm fully committed to our community. I'm fully committed to our mission, and this is where I choose to be. I know, Stretch, am I stuck here? But this is my community, and these are our problems, and I'm committed to work through them. So please forgive me, but as we go through this presentation, I have someone else clicking the slide. So if you can click the next slide, please. And I'll give you an idea of what we're going to be doing. I'm going to be going through some topics here pretty quick. As you know, this is a town hall forum. I think we would be out with you in person if COVID would allow. But tonight, what I want to do is make sure that everyone has at least the beginning and understanding of not only who we are, what our challenges are, what we have done, and what we're doing to correct our challenges. We had a current reduction in service levels due to the resources we have and I'm going to be highlighting them and explaining them. And it's really important that I also educate and inform on additional resources that we have available to all of you. And I think the most important thing is to address questions. I say this every time I go and make a presentation. For those of you that have been actively engaged in this conversation, I thank you for staying engaged. Those of you that are new to this conversation, in a lot of ways, it can be very overwhelming to some degree of our challenges, the options to be able to correct, the challenges that we have. But this is really a conversation starter, or I'm continuing it with many of you to reinforce where we are. And so tonight, as we go through these things, the goal is to make sure that you have a good understanding of who we are, what our challenges are, and where we're going. So let's just jump right into it. Next slide, please. Our governance and who we are and our size and our population, our stations and our calls. That's what I'm going to be covering here on this slide. It's really important for the citizens of our jurisdiction to understand that the services of fire protection have been offered throughout our community since 1924, until we became a career organization in 2002. The East Contra Costa Fire Protection District is funded at the rate of a volunteer fire organization. All of our rates were set back in the 70s with Proposition 13. There's a lot of criticisms that the rates that we receive are wrong. And the reality is that our rates aren't wrong. Our rates are just at the stage of which we used to be in the 70s. That was a volunteer organization. And the percentage of the funding that we get of property taxes was adequate then, but it is not adequate now. With that being said, is that we're trying to correct that issue, and we're trying to inform people of how we arrived here, because there's a lot of misinformation. And the reason why we haven't, as a district, been able to correct a lot of the historical changes that we've had has to do a lot with governance. And so from 1924 to 2002, as I stated, there were many different organizations that were volunteer organizations. In 2002, we became a career fire department. We were a combination. We still had some volunteers. I was one of them. I started as a volunteer. I came over in 2002 as a career firefighter, promoted through the ranks, and I've been privileged to be the chief for the past 3 years. In 2002, we did not have an elected board. We actually did not have an elected board of this fire district until 2019. When we became a fire district in 2002, we consolidated 3 organizations called the Oakley Knights and Fire Protection District, the Bethel Island Fire District, and the East Diablo Fire Protection District. And when we merged in East Contra Costa Fire, we were governed by the Board of Supervisors from 2002 to 2010. And then from 2010 to 2018, we had an appointed board. And the appointed board was appointed by Oakley City Council, the Brentwood City Council, or the Board of Supervisors, and it was decided by population. I got hired by the appointed board, 9 board members at the time. We had 4 appointed from the city of Brentwood, because they have the largest population group. I had 3 from the city of Oakley, and then 2 from the unincorporated areas. When I came in 2017, and obviously with the support of the board, we knew that we needed to fix our governance. And we needed to be able to not only have local control, but we needed to be able to make some really hard changes, and we needed authority to do that. And so it wasn't until January 2019 that we actually had the first elected board. So what you can see on the last slide, yeah, thank you. So go back to where you were, please. Thank you. So we had elected board. We are an independent special district, and that's very important because we are not part of the city of Oakley. We're not part of the city of Brentwood. We're an independent district that is governed by a board of 5 that is elected, and we cover 250 square miles. That does include the city of Oakley, Brentwood, and the unincorporated communities of Knightson, Bethel Island, Byron, Discovery Bay, Marsh Creek, Morgan Territory, and Knightson. That 250 square miles, we have about 128,000 residents. That swell to about 155,000 when you include the workers that come into our communities. We run to the tune of approximately 7,700 calls per year, and it takes approximately 10,000 fire engines to mitigate those 7,700 calls. Today, we have 3 fire stations. We should have no less than 6. And we know over the next 20 years, we're going to need an additional 3 stations. And if orbit limit lines change, or if the general sphere of influences of the city and county change, we may need more. But we know right now with the general plans, as they say, we'll need a total of 9. And so we have 3 today, We have a 3-station existing deficit, and we know we need an additional 3 to address growth. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. This is the history that gives you a little bit of an idea from the 20s. When you see the three bottom areas of which it states 2002, 2010, and 2019, that references the governance changes from the board of supervisors to the appointed board to the elected board. But you can see we had many organizations that were established a long time ago. In the 70s, the rate of which we receive is the rate of which was needed to fund the district in the 70s, those fire districts in the 70s. And now we as the fire district get all of those revenues, but they're at least a half of what it is that we need to be able to run a 24/7, 365 operation. Next slide, please. This gives you an example of our current stations and our needed stations. On the left-hand side, that's who we are today. We have one station in Oakley, which is near Cypress and O'Hara. We have one in Brentwood, which is off of Balfour and John Muir Parkway, and one in Discovery Bay on Point of Timber and Bixler. On the right-hand side of your screen, you're going to see our existing deficits, the stations that if we had the revenue, we should have staff today. Station 55 on the Summer Lakes off of Cypress and Bethel Island Road. Station 51, which is going to be at Grant and Empire in Brentwood. And then Station 54 is the current location of the Shutter Station downtown Brentwood next to Bank of America. The 3 blue stations are the deficits that we're going to have over the next 20 years from growth. There should be one in Oakley, another one in Brentwood, and another one in unincorporated areas of the county. At full build out, we should have 3 stations in Oakley, 4 stations in Brentwood, and a total of 2 in the unincorporated areas if the general plans hold as they are today. Next slide, please. Our current challenges. We have 2 challenges, and this is a really important key point, is number 1, it's providing adequate fire protection to our existing population. And then number 2, it's preparing and providing the appropriate fire protection in regards to growth. Historically, when it comes down to our existing population, as I stated, is that we are funded at the rates of a volunteer fire organization. The mistakes that were made for decades is that the funding that we have, as I stated, is low. And the reason it was low is it's low now, but it was adequate then. What should have happened is over the time or prior to any development occurring, is the fire district should have put in place mitigation measures, which means we should have put assessments on new properties as they came into the area to ensure that they brought additional revenue into the fire district to address the impacts from their growth. The fire district historically has not done that, and the areas around us have not done that, provided additional funding for the fire district. And so we're funded today as a volunteer fire organization, but we are providing 24/7, 365 professional services. So we currently have 3, and we need a total of 6. And so the 3-station deficit is something the fire board is working on with our local agencies. We're looking at the state level. We're looking at assessments. We're looking at all different opportunities to see what we can do to address the existing service level deficits. But the reality is, historically, if we could have put the assessments incrementally on development over time and managed growth responsibly, we wouldn't have the deficits we do today. And we cannot put any assessments or do anything with anyone's properties, obviously, without their support. And that's why we're trying to educate and inform and see the willingness of the communities, businesses, local governments work with the fire district to address our historical existing deficit. And preparing to serve our growth is we know, again, that we're going to need an additional 3 stations over the next 20 years. And we cannot miss the opportunities or repeat the mistakes of the past. Next slide, please. So path to increased services. One of the things that we're doing right now, which is very important, is we're living within our means. We are sustainable administratively. This means that we have corrected our retention issues. Members are not leaving the organization. We are trying to stay competitive within the market to be able to pay our members at a rate of which would keep them to stay. When I came into the fire district, we were between 40 to 50%. Our members got paid 40 to 50% less than other agencies throughout the county. We're trying to hold the line right now. We're between 15 and 20% behind. And so when and if you ever see, and when you see, in the future you will see, as we continue to try to work to pay our members, it's a matter of just trying to stay competitive within the market. So with the investments we make in our people, they stay here. But all decisions that we make today are sustainable. We look 10 years into the future when we buy equipment, apparatus, so as we work to build stations, as we pay our members, and anything that we do. We are sustainable administratively at a 3-station model for the next 10 years. However, right now we're being overrun, and our members are not able to operationally answer the call on a day-to-day basis. So although administratively at 3 stations, we're living within our means, operationally, we are not sustainable. And there are many calls of which we cannot make it to. And I'll address that here in a moment. In regards to preparing for infrastructure, we are working to build stations 4, 5, and 6. We have the Bethel Island station that is ready to put members into if we had sustainable revenue to staff it. And I get criticized all the time, why are you building stations you can't staff? We are building stations because we do not want to wait to be able to get revenue into the district and not have stations to put people into, because it would create another delay. And they strategically can't be placed through a very large organization. So we are working right now to be able to build stations. We have one built. We're working on a design review for the one in downtown or in Brentwood on the Empire and Grant location. And we're hopefully in the next year, that station's going to be built. And in the interim, if we had revenue, we can dual staff some of our firehouses in the interim to be able to increase service levels. We're also looking at plans to increase revenues. Our statute and laws, we are very restricted on how we can increase revenue. The 1987 Fire Protection Law and Statute clearly states that through assessments and taxes, that's what the fire districts means, sustainable means. The fire board, myself, we are looking at alternative means. We're being very creative and innovative. We have not had much, if any, success, but that doesn't mean we don't stop pursuing. But we are also building the mechanisms to potentially move forward with some sort of an assessment in the future, which will be reconsidered by the board in November after we do all feasibility and explore all alternative options. That's a decision that we'll have to make, the board will have to make in the future. But right now, we are sustainable at 3, and that's what we're looking at. In regards to growth, we cannot continue to repeat the mistakes and not mitigate growth effectively. I'm very happy to state that we as the fire district have stopped the bleeding. We are now in the implementation phase, and it has taken us 3 years to get here. But on Tuesday, we got passed and approved through the city of Brentwood what's called impact fees. Impact fees are one-time fees paid by developers that will build future fire stations. We have a fee study in place that will not only construct, but also equip with equipment, 3 fire stations over the next 20 years. So the developers and the impact fees, they'll pay for that. We're coming to Oakley at the August 11th meeting, and we'll be going to the county in the very near future to get those fees done throughout our jurisdiction, which will build stations. We have also developed what's called CFDs, community facility districts, district community facility districts, to where we'll place on every single building that comes into our jurisdiction over the next 20 years to incrementally increase funding to the fire district, to sustainably staff those fire stations the impact fees pay for. It's taken us 3 years, but we finally have stopped the bleeding. The methodology that we have is growth is going to mitigate and the impacts that they bring in. The challenge is that we have right now an existing deficit, and we have to figure out how we want to address that. So we're exploring all options. We are looking at all levels of the state, local, and also the residents. It's going to take all of us to do what we need to do to move forward, but that is the path that we're looking to increase service. Next slide, please. Most recently, if any of you have been monitoring or looking, we made a press release in June that on July 1, we're going to make some significant service level reductions. This is what the press release looked like that was shot out by Fire Marshal Steve Albert. Next slide, please. But I want to cover with you very specifically what the service reductions are and how we came to those conclusions and what the driving forces were to be able to do this. The 2 reductions that have been made as of July 1 is that effectively all engine company public education events and station tours have been canceled indefinitely. As I stated, our members are being overrun. They are, a lot of times, most recently, for those of you that are aware of the Bethel Island incidents that we've been having, the Marsh Creek incidents we've been having, our members find themselves up for 24-hour periods, and they're having a whole time holding the line. It's not from a lack of effort. It's not from a lack of them wanting to work. It's just they're doing a lot of work. And we have to be mission focused with our members right now for operational readiness to respond to calls and be prepared for calls, and also make sure they don't fall behind for training. So they're equipped and prepared to make sure that they can answer the call when it comes in. I think it slid back one, if we can go back to the previous slide, please. Thank you. We have also, as of July 1, our firefighters will be making a defensive stance because of limited resources we have, and not making aggressive interior fire attacks unless there's life safety at risk or they cannot keep it within the structure it originated. I want to be very clear to all of our residents that we as firefighters are not trained to operate this way. We're very aggressive by nature. We're trained to go and get it, but we got to do it safely. We are currently sending our firefighters to residential fires with 3 fire engines, where every other agency throughout the county sends them with 5 fire engines. Secondarily is, we are stressing the aid agreements we have from outside agencies. Aid agreements are supposed to be balanced on an annual basis. Ours are not. They're sending double, if not triple, the resources to us on an annual basis, and our aid agreements are growing not sustainable. And for that reason, I have to limit the amount of resources I call from outside agencies to ensure that when I need them, those resources are there. So for that reason, when we arrive at fires, if there are smoke and flames coming from a building, our members are directed to be able to mitigate that fire with the resources they have at scene, unless they cannot keep it within the originating structure or there's a life safety issue. If they cannot keep it within the structure or there's a life safety issue, they are approved and actually required to call for additional resources to mitigate the incident. I want to let the citizens know of our community, this is the hardest decision I've had to make. And in some ways, a very embarrassing decision I've had to make. None of my colleagues that I know up and down the state, throughout the county, have ever had to consider making an operational directive such as this. I have been struggling with this for over a year, but the fact that we do not have revenue in the very near future coming into the district, we have to delay getting additional resources due to COVID and everything that's happening, and that our automatic aid agreements with the agencies are becoming strained. I have to make sure that we create the safest environment for everybody. I also want folks to know that when I say we go from the outside to the inside, our members do not stand idle. They will do what they can with what they have, but they cannot overcommit. If our members overcommit, we call ourselves for 911. And the time and distance for our members to get help from our own is too far away. If they get into a structure and they become compromised, lost, trapped, and are missing, we rescue our own. And I'm sending our members to a very dynamic and very risky and unsafe environments without the resources or tools and equipment they need. And so for that reason, I had to tell them it is going to be a defensive outside operation, slowly calculated to the inside. This doesn't mean they never go inside. We never watch anything just burn. We actually do the best that we can to mitigate the situation. Our members are spread thin. The situation is growing worse. And I need to try to create the safest environment for our members, the resources we have. I stated that the aid agreements we have with outside agencies are being strained. We have a great neighbor, Contra Costa County Fire. They continue to work with us, but they cannot continue to subsidize us, and that's why we're driving this decision. And lastly, as in the very bottom of the slide, our firefighters are falling behind on their normal daily assignments, on their training, and operational readiness is our priority. This is a resource issue. It's purely a resource issue. Next slide, please. Prior to getting into where you can get more information and sharing information with about our fire marshal and myself, I want to put our phone numbers on the slide. I want folks to know this. Look, as the fire chief, my job is this. My job, when I got appointed to work in this position, is to run the organization as the CEO, as the general manager, the revenues I have as effectively as I can. And I believe that we're doing that. And I welcome anyone to come and look and see what we're doing and participate in our community meetings, finance and otherwise, to see it. We're doing that. When and if I identify we have a service level deficit, we're underperforming, we're not meeting the mark, it is my job to educate and inform not only the board, but the community of those deficits. I'm also tasked with coming up with recommendations and presenting those recommendations to the fire board for consideration. If the board approves those considerations, it is at their authority to either advance those to the community for consideration or not. And if they do, it is for the community to choose if they want to invest into correcting the deficits or not. If they pass, it is my job to implement to the fullest degree whatever was approved. And if they do not pass, it is my job to make sure I continue to run the organization with the resources that I continue to have. Right now in that process, I'm educating and informing. I am working on exploring all alternative options. I'm trying to make sure I do my due diligence to make sure I've kicked over every rock and make sure that I bring all relevant, reliable sources to the fire board so they all can be educated and informed to make very hard decisions come November. We are monitoring what's happening at the state, we're monitoring what's happening at the local level, and we are working on our own internal initiatives to make sure we can demonstrate through our behaviors, not our words, we've done our due diligence. In November, they will take action and I will take the direction they provide me. But it is important for everyone to understand that my job as the fire chief, I'm not a magician. I can't take revenue from other places. I can just run with what I got and educate and inform. That's what I'm here to do today. It is very important for all of you to be engaged and be informed. Our website is a wealth of information. It's on the screen. We have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. We are doing a Facebook Live series. All the events are on our Facebook page. We archive and video all of those. We did a FaceTime Live last week. We have a 6-video series that we're going to be going through. All of them, on Monday, we're doing another one, the second video of the series on response times. I'll do an introduction. We'll show the video. We'll do a Q&A, the recorded. The one we did on Monday, and this meeting here tonight, we plan on being available on our website starting next week. And as we move forward, after these meetings are done, within 48 hours, they'll be posted to our website. So our website is the source. It is where the information is. We're doing these town hall meetings through all our communities as it identifies on the screen. Our board meetings are live streamed and recorded. You can go back and watch them. The way we do governance, the way we do business, we believe in transparency, and we're trying to do the best we can with what we have. And our finance meetings are also available to the public. And it's all available on our website. If you go onto our homepage of our website, you can register for not only press releases, you can also register for our board packets. You'll be notified of any events and coming up, and so you can be aware and be in the know. Next slide, please. That's the last slide. Myself, and I have on the line with me tonight also Fire Marshal Steve Albert. He runs the Prevention Bureau. He does everything involved when it comes down to inspections, plan review, investigations, community risk reduction. He's also our PIO, our Public Information Officer. His cell phone, my cell phone, and emails are available to you. As President Oftedal stated, I'm available to you sincerely 24/7. I am here to serve you, and I want you to be in the know. So I'm available. I'm willing to meet with anybody. I'm willing to present to any group to educate and inform, but it is imperative that nobody is surprised as we move forward in the months to come. It's imperative that everyone is educated so they can make educated decisions. And I do welcome constructive criticism. If for any reason I'm not meeting the mark, or if there's anything that you are concerned with, I'm always aiming for improvement. I have a lot to learn, a lot to grow, but I'll conclude by saying I'm privileged and honored to serve all of you, and I'm doing the best to my ability at this time, but I'm looking to grow with all of you. So thank you, President Oftedal, for the opportunity to speak, and obviously myself, Chief Albert, is also on the line. We're available for any questions when you're ready to do so. Thank you.
Nice, thank you, Chief Helmick. And do we have any questions for the chief or anybody online this evening?
I think I can hear you, President Oftedal.
All right, how about now?
Still can't hear you.
I am unmuted, or at least it's showing unmuted on my screen. Still not hearing me,
Suzanne,
Chief?
I don't know if you're on the line, if you can hear me. Yeah.
I am.
Okay. I know you guys can hear me.
So can we stop sharing screen?
I can't
yeah,
hear.
so if anybody has any questions, raise your hand. Actually visually, if you're on video, if you want to, use the raise hand button, the little blue hand down in the participants. Or if you don't want to actually talk, but you'd still like to have a question answered, pop it in chat and we'll read it. And please tell us whom you would like to address the question to. And we have Mayor Romick on hand, City Manager Brian Montgomery, of course, Chief Helmick, Steve O'Bear is on questions as well, and Angela is still here. So anybody have a question? I know you have questions.
I hope you have questions.
You're just doing too good of a job.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you,
Oh,
Mike.
okay, we have a question.
Looks like we have Alan that has a question this evening.
Hi there,
Oh.
Alan Hartford here. This question is for Chief Helmick. Brian, it's Alan Hartford here. I hope you're doing good.
Hey, good to hear your voice, Alan. It's been a while.
Well, I've just moved back here from my hiatus up to Vacaville, so I'm trying to get back up to speed with things.
Yes,
So
sir.
just a couple quick questions. You sort of touched on them. I haven't had a chance to really dive in your website yet, but two things. Number one, can you update us on the status of your current auto aid agreement with Confire? And number two, and what limitations there are. And again, you touched on that, but I'd like to hear a little more detail on that. And secondly, the data. Again, I haven't gone to your website yet, but you talked about response times. I think those things demonstrate your deficiencies where you're having issues at. So I don't know if that is currently available on your website. You could do some more on that, but response times obviously help demonstrate to the public some of your challenges you're up against.
Great questions, Alan. And again, welcome back. So let's talk about the automatic aid agreement with Contra Costa County Fire. So again, as I stated, for those that you may not be aware, is that the way residential structure fires work is that we send no less than 5 fire engines with 3 firefighters on each engine and 2 battalion chiefs. That is the minimum standard throughout the county that we have to be able to mitigate what we call a simple room and content fire, which can be anything from a garbage can to a bed to drapes. It consumes the whole room, but it doesn't even extend into the attic. It doesn't get into the walls. It stays within a simple room. It takes those 15 firefighters to be able to affect not only water supply, forcible entry, search and rescue, fire attack, and primary, secondary search, salvage, and overhaul. It takes 15 people to be able to do that and provide what we call for the health and safety or the rapid intervention crew for our members if they were to become compromised or fall through the roof and or if trapped, missing. We effect our own rescues in that situation, no less than 15. And so that just kind of sets the baseline. Alan, to address your question, the automatic aid agreement right now is that we get 3 engines in total sent to all single alarm incidents, and 2 battalion chiefs do come. And we only get up to 4 resources from Contra Costa County Fire automatically. So what that means is that if they have an incident, there's 8 engines, what they call battalion 8, from Antioch to Bay Point. Contra Costa County Fire has 8 stations. From Bay Point to Antioch, they have 8 stations. In our 250 square miles, we have 3. If they're working a residential structure fire anywhere from Bay Point to Antioch, and battalion 8 is one, if not the busiest battalions in the county. They do not have any available resources for us because they've exhausted 5 resources. So if they have 4 available resources in battalion 8, they will give us up to 4. So the point being is, if we only send 3 to a structure fire, and if they're all available in quarters and another one comes in, they'll send another 3. But they will not send anything more than 4 automatically. I will tell you that we're the only agency in Contra Costa County to where regularly, just last week, we had units from San Ramon, Moraga, Crockett, Carquinez running incidents within our jurisdiction. East Contra Costa Fire has never been anything beyond outside of a strike team deployment, which means we go far away to fight fires. We really haven't gone past Pittsburgh. And so the automatic aid agreement, we are still, Alan, we are still 2 to 3 to 1. We're still heavily imbalanced. And that is why the recent adjustments have been made to send only 3 units to fires. Confire will not send us any resources if they have less than 4 available units within battalion 8. And those are some of the restrictions. We do not have a truck. For those of you that may not be aware, a truck is where you see a ladder on top of an engine, a very 100-foot tall ladder on top of the engine. Fire trucks do not have those. We do not even have a truck, and a truck is a mutual aid request. So we cannot get up beyond 3 stories, 2 to 3 stories without calling a truck. So anything above a 2-story building, commercial, industrial, residential. We cannot effect a rescue out of those buildings outside of calling for a truck, and that's mutual aid. And if it's committed, we're not going to get it. And so the next engine we do get in line is going to be a truck within our jurisdiction, but we are very much hampered. So we have reduced the aid agreement tremendously since you departed, Alan. And I already stated our defensive tactics. So I hope that addresses your question. And no, it doesn't all the way. Secondarily, our website. Listen, if you go on our website, on the top about the district, you'll find a tab that says about the district, and our operational reports are posted on a monthly basis. You'll find the calls we're unavailable for. You'll find our response times. You'll find the automatic aid, how many times we send units to Confire, how often they come to us. Very good, thank you. So when you scroll all the way down to the monthly operational reports, you got it, monthly operational reports. I think we get the gist. I don't know what's clicking. There you go. Yep. You go to the monthly operational reports and you click on that. There they are. And you can historically see them. So, Alan, all the information is at the click of your fingertips, and we strive to make sure that there's any information that you want on the district, from our finances to operations, it's available there for you 24/7.
Great, Brian. Thank you very much. As you know, I'm retired now, so anything I can do to help out, more than happy to.
It'd probably be
It's good to be
appropriate
back.
coffee. Thank you. Yeah, that'd be great. Welcome back.
All right.
Awesome. Our next question is from Benjamin Kellogg. Benjamin, can you unmute? There we go.
Good evening, Chief. How
Benjamin,
you
you're
doing?
on.
Question for you. Can you explain the pros and cons of consolidation with Confire?
Absolutely. Sure. Well, there's a couple. So look, I think the historical challenge we've had, and just to be clear, is that the fire board and myself, we explore the feasibility of everything. And that is something that we're also exploring the feasibility of, and we'll be bringing back as we approach the board meeting. So just to be clear, we've done that historically many times. The conversation is somewhat stale, so it's important for us to make sure as we approach November that we re-explore it. But historically, what we have found is that there just was not the economy. There was a deficit. We have a service level deficit. The deficit still needs to be covered by somebody. And so that is the challenge of trying to find, if you can do consolidation, increase service levels, right? Not just consolidation, but in consolidation of service levels, there's obviously a value there. But the deficit has always been so great that it's been very challenging to demonstrate to doing that. Most agencies will consolidate, again, if there's economy. One agency doesn't have something or the other one does, and vice versa. So they can be comparable on both sides. It can take care of some redundancy within organizations. Some agencies will consolidate for potential cost savings measures. And that is the goal, is to be able to more efficiently increase service levels at a reasonable rate. As I stated to you, not only do we have a 3-station deficit, Confire compensates our employees at 15 to 20% greater than we currently do. So that presents its own challenges. And that is a challenge. I think another historical thing that we have had within this area is that the community, those that have been around in 2002, the desire to go independent, special district, to create East Contra Costa Fire was for local control. A lot of folks wanted to be able to have local control in the East Contra Costa County area. They wanted local control. They wanted their own governance. It obviously took 17 years for that governance to come to fruition. That was why I knew that we needed to do that, because that was one of the original desires. So a pro and con, again, is the pros can be that there is increased service level deficits for an equal to or reduced rate. The cons can be that it can't do that, and folks would lose local control. If consolidation with any agency were to occur, if it were San Ramon Valley, we'd be governed out of San Ramon. If it were Contra Costa County, it would be governed underneath Contra Costa County, and so we would become a county resource or something along those lines. If it were to be with CAL FIRE, it'd be governed by the state. So you have governance, and you don't have this local feel in the touch. But to be clear, consolidation is something that, along like everything else, we're checking the feasibility on, and I will be reporting back once feasibility is completed. Hope that addresses your question.
Brian, maybe I could add, this is Mayor Romick, maybe I can add some to that point. It may be interesting to know that in 1994, that the Board of Supervisors dissolved the dissolved the Oakley Knighton Fire District and merged us with Confire. And then in 1998, the voters of the district decided they loved their volunteers more than they liked being on Confire, and so they voted us out of the Confire district and voted back in the Oakley Knighton Fire District. Another issue we have to be concerned with is the deficit, as you spoke, and that also has to do with the allocation that comes out of our property taxes. There are 7 fire districts within Contra Costa County, and the average percentage per dollar coming out of everyone's property taxes in 6 of those, and the other 6 is 12 to 14 cents of every dollar in your property taxes. In East County, the average is 6 cents, and so there's a wide disparity there in funding. And I think anyone who would merge with us, who would consider merging to us, would ask us to come up with some additional funding, and also to be able to support the resources that you talked about earlier.
Awesome. Thank you, Mayor Romick. And Tony Kukuli in chat has a question. Chief, he'd like you to talk a little bit about how the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted the district's operational readiness.
Yeah, so first of all, I need to commend our members. This has been a huge learning curve. I would like to also thank President Vince Wells of Local 1230, as he and his crews work not only with taking care of their members' safety and everything that it is that we do, all things COVID. We had to rebuild the organization, not only operationally, but also through our Prevention Bureau, administratively and otherwise. Working remotely has been a huge challenge. Our Prevention Bureau still don't have to do life safety inspections, but they have to have all the restrictions and all the protective mechanisms in place. And our operational personnel, the way of which we have to decon our equipment, decon our apparatus, the way that they have to wear equipment. We treat every medical call as a COVID call. And so they have to have a lot of readiness. Our decon, we are actually decontaminating all their equipment, but our engines, it is streamlined and it has created a safer environment for our folks on a day-to-day basis. I mean, to the degree where I'm confident to say that we've been running this for so long now, that my concern is not so much at the fire station or running calls as our members going to the stores or going to Starbucks, because we are taking such an extreme measure to make sure that our members are equipped and safe. We have to wear a lot more equipment. Our members have to obviously wear their masks, the decon, and the whole bit. So there is not only a monetary impact, which we're working through a state of emergency, a declaration to be able to do cost recovery that we're actively working on as we speak. So there's been a financial impact. There's been a huge operational impact, but that operational impact is not just also with operations running calls. It's on prevention and admin. So I'm happy to say that I believe that we've gotten into a position where it's somewhat seamless, but we have to monitor our members every single day while they come in and off duty. Sick calls these days are not just standard sick calls. People are getting tested, people are getting reviewed, and we are very sensitive about how we approach this. So COVID has been very hard on us. I mean, it's even hitting us tonight. I would love to be in a room with all of you, to be able to have coffee with some of you as we have these conversations, but now we're doing everything remotely, and it makes it difficult. So I'd be more willing to talk about that offline, but I believe that we take the bull by the horns and we're doing okay, but it has been absolutely difficult in this time.
Hi, I've got another question in chat. I'm not sure who he intended this to be directed to. From Scott. Hi, I'm not seeing the whole name. He's talking about Oakley having one of the highest property tax rates. How is the percentage so low for fire protection? So I don't know if Mayor Romick or the city manager would like to take that, or Chief.
If it seems like Kevin is willing and prepared, and I'd love to support him once he's done.
Property taxes are 1%. of the assessed value at purchase time. It's the same across the state, and it's the same everywhere. In 1978, when Prop 13 came into existence, it set that standard. It also set the standard. So what Prop 13 did was roll back property taxes in 1978 to 1976 value. It limited the amount of time to how a home can be assessed, and that is at purchase time, and raise the level it takes to raise property taxes to a two-thirds supermajority to vote in that. They left the allocation of who gets what in your property tax bill, of all the agencies that take part in your school and that receive funding from property. It left that to the state assembly and the state senate to determine what those values would be. And as the chief is so said often tonight, that when they came to Oakley and Far East County were all under volunteers, and they set a level in 1978 to what was appropriate in 1978, and really didn't set in any type of mechanism to come back in a few years and reevaluate to make sure those numbers are sufficient. Twice the state has gone back and reevaluated statewide and readjusted numbers, and both those were to provide more funding to schools throughout the state. But the average property tax bill in Oakley, about 66% of the dollar, 66% of that dollar, or 66 cents of every dollar goes to pay for schools. 14 cent goes to pay the county. 7% pays for special districts, and about 6% average across the city of Oakley goes to the city of Oakley to provide the services that the city of Oakley does, and about 5% or 5 cents of every dollar goes to pay for fire services. In Brentwood, it's slightly different. The city gets 19 cents of every dollar, and the fire department gets about 7 cents of every dollar. Reason Oakley, depending on where you live, is not property taxes. We are aware that if you live out East Cypress and some of the new homes in Oakley, there's a number of assessments that have been attached to your home to build the roads and all the infrastructure that was necessary to create the homes out in those areas. So the property tax, we're aware that in some of the areas that you're reaching almost 2% of the value of your home is going to pay, but most of that isn't going into property taxes or going in to pay associated fees for the building that went on out in those areas.
Yeah, so if I can continue to add on. So I think that, as Councilmember Mayor Romanek stated, is that that's one of the biggest challenges we have, again, is that, the rates are lower. I know a lot of folks believe that they're wrong, and I respect that and understand. And for a little transparency on my end, some authenticity, is I did too when I came in. And I spent the first year with the support of the board, and it was being done prior to my arrival. We researched out reallocation going in, and I also believed that they were wrong until I learned how they were established. And if we could go on a road trip, and I've said this before in other forums, if you heard it, please forgive me, but if we can go on a road trip back to the 70s when Prop 13 went into place, and if we could go to Contra Costa County Fire, Livermore, or Pleasanton, or San Ramon, or Moraga, or Orinda, they had full service operations, 24/7 professional firefighters on a day at that time. And they get between 14 to 21%. When you come out here, we did not have those level of protections. And I worked with the state assessors and the county assessors to gain understanding and just the mystery of tax rate areas. And we have hundreds of tax rate areas in our communities, and the mayor referenced the averages of some of them. And we have ranges across the board from everywhere from 4.6% all the way to 18.5% through our jurisdiction. But on average, our jurisdiction gets 7% on the dollar on average. Everyone pays the same 1%. That 1% is divided up, but on average, we get that average is 7%. It's half of what we need, and it's because we're funded. The state very much makes it clear this is a local issue. They believe that, again, look, the lack of governance, the lack of due diligence, the lack of mitigating growth effectively and not putting the appropriate mitigation measures on is something that needs to be corrected at the local level. That I've been told repeatedly. Please don't shoot the messenger here. We continue to explore that. So the challenge is, again, trying to address how we take care of our existing service level deficits in the manner of which we're addressing growth. So we've corrected the problem. We've stopped the bleeding, but we still have an existing service challenge. So that is the challenge. The rates are low. It's decades old. And it's a non-discussion starter at the state because they're not going to change the state law, or they're not going to reallocate for a single agency. And so we are exploring all options, as I stated. Secondarily, I also want to hit on this. If anyone is watching this from the Summer Lakes community, if anyone's watching this from the Gilbert properties out in the Cypress area, Delta Coves, look, all of those communities have CFDs, community facility districts, placed onto them. And I just want all those residents to know, or if anyone knows residents live in those areas, is that the fire district's readily aware that we believe there's inequity amongst the taxes for our members due to those CFDs, because some have them and some do not. And we're trying to create and erase those inequities, that everyone has the same assessments on their properties to increase fire protection. So the Summer Lake communities, the Delta Coves, the Gilbert properties, you are helping the fire district increase service levels. And we are trying to get that same assessment on all their properties. I also want to assure everybody, and please monitor and watch if you're one of those properties that have an assessment, if the fire district moves forward with an assessment, we're readily aware, and the fire district's board, through the finance meetings and designing these reports and these studies, they have no interest to double tax anybody. They want to make sure that there's not any inequities. If a measure or something potentially goes through, they would offset. Members would either get a credit, they would only pay the higher of the two, but no one is going to get it twice. And so we are very aware of the CFDs throughout our jurisdiction. The challenge is we don't have them on all the parcels in our communities. There's 44,600 and change parcels in our jurisdiction. And about 1,000 of them have an assessment on it to increase fire protection, which means that we're about 43,000 parcels short of where we need to be to provide adequate fire protection. I've said this before, but I'm going to repeat it. We're checking feelly on everything else. We've been trying for 3 years, and I get criticized on a regular basis of lack of urgency. Why haven't you guys already made an ask? Why aren't you going to correct this issue? Is because I'm trying to demonstrate, number one, we're living within our means. Number two is that we're doing the hard work to try everything that we can to erase the delta of what we need before we make an ask. And that's what we continue to try to demonstrate between now and November. But it's important that everyone's engaged, informed, and understands. So it is challenging and it is hard, but I can say on behalf of my staff, we're not afraid to work. And I do commend the fire board for holding me accountable and exploring and giving me the ability and the privilege to kick over every rock. So I hope that addresses it.
Thanks, Chief. I got another question in chat. This one's from Mike Dupre, and he'd like you to answer it. He said, moving forward, what is the status of the tax measure, and what is being considered concerning a merger with Confire?
Yeah, so again, my job as the fire chief, again, repeating myself, is to run the district, identify deficits, educated deficits, and provide recommended solutions. Staff is currently working on those recommended solutions, but that also requires me to do my due diligence of looking and seeing what alternative options in lieu of taxes are and presenting those facts to the board. Board president Oftedal also has an ad hoc to where he is working and exploring and discussing some alternatives too, where he's working right now. There's an ad hoc with Brentwood and the fire board discussing if there's any opportunity there. So he's going to continue to drive those and check the feasibility. And I am working through the feasibility of seeing if consolidation is an option. So right now, it's very early on, but my goal is prior to November, hopefully in September or October, we should be able to identify and present what our findings are in regards to all alternative means. In regards to a tax measure, these things all run in parallel. So we're checking feasibility on everything. We're kicking over every rock. We're looking through all alternative means, and running parallel to that, we are building mechanisms that need to be legally sound. They need to be measurable. They need to be understood. And we have about, right now, staff has prepared 4 options for the fire board to consider: 1 station, a 2 station, a 3 station, or a 3 station tiered up model. We as staff We always have been recommending that we need to erase our 3-station deficit. That's something we've been working on for 3 years. But we also need to be prepared that if we come up with alternative solutions to address 1 and or 2 stations, and we only have a 1-station deficit, that's the only ask that really needs to be made if the board would allow. Secondarily is that COVID is very real. And COVID has impacted our communities, not only on the federal, the state, and the local level. And I'm not insensitive to that. I know many, and I understand, not only professionally, business, and personally, that COVID is real. Prior to COVID, it was only a 1, 2, and 3-station model, depending upon what we can do with feasibility, run in parallel to this. The reason we are working right now on a 3-station tier up, it means that 1 station immediately, then 1 station 2 years later, and then another station 2 years later. So in 5 years, we get our 3 stations. And on the in-between years, we can use grants, one-time monies to build a bridge to the sustainable revenue that will come over that time. But I understand from COVID that it's going to take it's going to take time for people to recover and to recoup. And so for that reason, the 3-station tiered up approach is something we can start investing into now that would fully mature in 5 years. But we can start correcting our existing service level deficit immediately, and we can use grants and one-time monies to be able to increase service levels as beforehand. All I'm trying to say to answer Mike's question is, we are looking at everything, not only from propositions that are happening at the federal level, we're working at the local level, or we're looking at the county level for any propositions, measures, or anything that comes across the line. We're looking at consolidation and other means. We'll check the feasibility, and then we're going to have in staging prepared 1, 2, and or 3-station or 3-station tiered up to present all of those to the board to be equipped, prepared, and ready to be able to make an educated decision and to be able to move forward with something potentially in November if the need is there. So that is what I'm working on every day, and I want to make sure that everyone in our community is knowledgeable and aware of not only what we're doing, what we're approaching, and so they can be engaged in the conversation. So there's no surprises. So Mike, I hope that answers your question. Thank you, Mike.
Great. I got a couple more questions in chat. Sandy Strobel would like to direct this to both the mayor and to the chief. We've addressed it a little bit, but she's still looking for some additional information. Overall, the property taxes can be crazy high in Oakley, like literally $1,000 a month. Please address the special assessments and how those came about, why, and how.
So I might need a little bit of help here in regards to on the fire special assessments. How did that? I don't know if we can get clarity. Is it specific to the fire or just in general? Do you know, Susanna? Maybe you can read the question again and I can dissect it better.
Oh, no. Okay. To the mayor and the chief, overall, the property taxes can be crazy high in Oakley, like literally $1,000 a month. Please address these special assessments and how they came about and why.
Okay. No, I think I can start to, and respectfully, Mayor Romanek, if I'm off base, you can.
Definitely not fire.
Then Kevin, you comfortable I defer? I have.
Yeah, well, you know, we can talk about that. Like I say, your property tax bill is used as a conduit by a number of agencies to add tax, to collect fees through. Your property tax is 1% of your assessed value. That is your property tax. There were fees that when the development went in through, especially if you live in the newer parts of Oakley, East Cypress, where people notice it the most. There was a lot of infrastructure that needed to be paid for, that needed to be built by the developer in order to build the homes out there. What you're paying off is in the fee part of your property tax bill, is payment for infrastructure, for the roads, the sewers, the water lines, everything that needed to be able to do that. And that's why eventually those fees will go back off. You know, 25, 30 years, I'm not sure how long those fees will be in there. They will drop off, and then you'll be left to just your property tax, part of your property tax bill. Also, what you pay for in there, and you'll see a significant rise in that, is what you pay Iron House Sanitation for sanitary. They recently just raised the rates a little bit, and so that's also in there. So next time you get a property tax bill, look specifically at what you're paying for on there. you'll see a TRA, Brian mentioned it, a tax rate area. And there's about 50 tax rate areas within the community of Oakley. And a tax rate area is where they tried to lump together homes that are paying similar fees. A very easy one to distinguish is I live on the west side of Empire, which is in the Antioch School District. So my property taxes include that go pay for school, go pay for the Antioch school system. The person who lives across the street from me on Empire is in a different tax rate area, and the schools and the dollars that they pay for schools go to the Oakley School District and the Liberty High School District. And so with like I say, there's about 50, probably 50, 55 tax rate areas within the city of Oakley, all of them sending different parts of that property tax to different governmental agencies or different payment structures through that process. Hopefully that answers this.
And I'll add to some degree, just at a higher level. So we have our baseline, and I think it's really important, again, to reflect back and think about what our community was in the 70s when the tax rate, the TRAs were established, and the percentages of which they were established. And the way that the state and county assessors have always explained it to me was any added service level, it needs to be funded. And if it isn't, if it's up and beyond what we used to have, it's what it comes through is assessments and taxes to be able to fund those mechanisms. If it isn't, then it's through grants or it's through other options. I know it's super unpopular. I mean, again, I don't know, again, a lot of folks don't know me, they don't know that, but I myself also am a resident. I was a resident of Oakley. I'm now a resident of Brentwood. I've lived out here since '98. I see and I feel what everyone is saying. I hear you. But at increasing service levels, they have to be funded from somewhere. And the new development, adding the new and added level services is an added benefit. And the question is, again, how is it compensated? So anyway, yeah. Next question.
Yes, Ben Kellogg has a follow-up question.
Sure.
All right, thank you very much. This is for the elected leaders of Oakley. I had a question. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the fire impact fees in Oakley haven't been updated in between 15 and 20 years. Why has this not been a priority for the city of Oakley when you have decided to do all of this residential building?
I'd be happy to jump in. Brian Montgomery, the city manager. What happened is when the city of Oakley incorporated in 1999, it carried over many of the fees that the county had in place, and we merely continued those fees with a cost of living increase because there was not a new study done to evaluate what facilities the fire district needed. That study has now been complete. Chief Helmick referred to that because the city of Brentwood reviewed that study, and on August 11th, the city council here in Oakley will review that same study that will update the fees that you're referring to.
Right, and to follow up with that, Brian, the fire district is responsible for assessing those fees or doing that fee study?
What's
Brian,
interesting is...
We're too many Brians here.
I'll answer that though, and the chief can correct me, but state law does not allow fire districts, currently, does not allow fire districts to collect those fees. So it's been up to the county and the city of Brentwood and the city of Oakley to collect those fees. Ben, might be good to know that the fees collected in Oakley have been able to build a couple of stations, but the fees need to go up to meet the future needs of the district, and that's why the district paid for an updated study. But the district is not able to impose those fees and has recommended that the cities and the county do so. Brentwood voted to do so just Tuesday, and the city council here in Oakley will be considering the same thing. So the district's not able to collect them. It's a little awkward. We collect them and then send them for district's purposes. The cities cannot use those fees for anything else but fire facilities and equipment.
Yeah, and I'll support that. So the fire, that's the thing, is fire impact fees are unique because according to the 1987 fire protection law and statute, the statute we're governing, it says that we shall not be able to impose and or collect impact fees. So we got to work with what we call land use agencies, and the 3 land use agencies that we provide fire protection to: the city of Oakley, the city of Brentwood, and the unincorporated areas of Contra Costa County. So we did update the study, and we have to work with them for them to adopt those studies, and we are working to get what's called an administrative agreement. So we would administer and utilize those fees and do the annual reporting as required on those fees. The city of Brentwood, their fees had not been updated until Tuesday night since 2004. The county, Oakley, because Oakley, when they incorporated, they adopted, as Brian stated, from the county, were done in the mid-'80s, and so they're antiquated. But I anticipate by September, not only will all those fees be updated, and we'll also have the administrative agreements to do what we need to do with them. The Fire Mitigation Fee Act is very clear that it can only be used for future growth, future development. So it does not do anything to address our existing service level deficits. It doesn't do anything to address our existing infrastructure deficit. So we have the ability to build 2 of the 3 stations we have. We have a fraction for the 3rd station for existing deficit, but we do have a delta. And we are looking at how we're going to erase that in the very near future. But hopefully that addresses that question.
And the clarification, the fees that are assessed to only apply to new homes being built in the community.
Yes, it's only and you know, as I stated the other night also, one thing that's important for residents to also see is that when we say new development, it's anything that hasn't been entitled, which means there hasn't been conditions in place. They haven't already been approved. So just because you see dirt starting to move next week, it doesn't mean that it was just approved at the most recent meeting. Those projects can have been approved decades ago. So we can build 3 stations over the next 20 years with development that has not been entitled. Now, with that being said, there's a lot of development that's already in the queue that has been entitled, and they are underneath the existing fees, the existing numbers that we have, or at the time of which they went through the approval process. What I want folks to know is that we, as the fire district, haven't been satisfied, and we've been working with the developers that have come through and seeking if they will voluntarily take our new fees versus the old fees. And we've had 3 different developers that have been able to do that. And the ones that haven't, it isn't a matter of not just wanting to. Many of them have already financed their projects, and there just isn't room to be able to do that expenditure. So legally, there's only certain properties that we can do. We're working with the ones that we can't. But over the next 20 years, the fees that we're putting in place now will address the impacts of future growth on that side. Now, I want to also clarify on the CFDs. Community facility districts, the fire district can do that independently of any land use agency. And we are the ones that have the policies in place. We are working with a developer. We have a couple of them right now working through the process. We need to establish one to establish the CFD, and we will annex or bring future developments in to that community facility district. We are in the process of doing that as we speak. So not only the CFDs are assessed to the residents, future residents, and they pay for the ongoing operations of the stations. Impact fees are paid by the developers, and they're one-time fees that add up to pay for the stations and the apparatus. They're very restricted. They're monitored. We have to report out on them, and they can't be used vice versa. They're very, very clear on how we can use them. So I'm willing to talk offline with anyone about that if they have any questions.
Brian Montgomery, how many homes were built in Oakley last year? 250, 300 homes?
I think it was 240, something like that.
240. And we'll say there's a $500 fee per home. I'm just guessing. I don't remember exactly what it was that goes into this fire facilities fee.
It's about $780 a house.
Okay, and so at 200 and at 200 homes, 240 homes a year, it takes about $4 to $5 million to build a fire station. Chief?
These days, it's costing us about it's almost about $1,000 a square foot these days. Is going to take us up to $7.5 million to build the station.
Right. So collecting these fees a
10 million.
little bit at a time, the way we do is painstakingly slow. Because, I mean, you know,
It's
the
incremental.
growth, it
Trickles
is
in.
very incremental. Yes. Thank you.
And that's why, but if historically, if we can think about our communities, we have between 1,000 to 1,500% growth over the past 30 to 40 years. If you can think about that growth incrementally, not only a drop in the bucket to build our infrastructure, but ongoing revenue over time, we wouldn't be in this forum here tonight.
Cool. Okay, Scott Kaida, if your follow-up question has not been answered, please let me know in chat. I think it probably was with the last couple of answers. And then Ben Kellogg had a follow-up that I think is more directed at the city of Oakley. He's asking if you see any reason why updated impact fees would not be approved by the council when it comes up before the council.
I can't talk about it, anything I haven't seen yet. I mean, yeah, it's not on my agenda. I haven't seen any of the paperwork.
Yeah, I
Like I
might
say,
jump in, Mayor. We actually
ahead,
have
yeah.
3 city council members in this discussion. And so since it's a matter that will be brought on the agenda, state law actually doesn't allow the city council members to talk about it in this forum because it's not yet agendized, but it will be on the August 11th city council meeting. So they will be able to express their opinions at that time because it'll be duly agendized. Again, it's a state law, open meeting law issue. So we probably shouldn't have them comment too much on it, but I don't see any reason why an updated fee, a fee that was adopted in the 80s, shouldn't be updated nowadays. So I couldn't see why they wouldn't favorably consider some sort of update.
And what I will say that's non-related and respectful to the boundaries that have been said from the fire district's perspective on the impact fees to Mr. Kellogg is that these impact fees were not made in a silo. They were made in an inclusive process with the city of Brentwood, Oakley County, city managers and staff. We have also worked with the Building Industry Association, the BIA, and we are all aligned and understand the approach of what we're doing. So coming from the fire district and my side, I believe we've done what we need to do, but we do need to respect the formal processes at hand.
Great, everybody. I don't have any more questions in chat. I have no hands up. But Brian Oftedal did have one point, which Chief, I think you were going to cover in your wrap up anyway. So kind of last chance, any last minute questions here?
Yeah, I have some closing comments, but I think if President Oftedal would allow, I'd like to say a few words for 1 minute, and then I defer to you to close.
Sure, and I'll read what he had messaged me. He asked if you would mind speaking about some of the creative outreach we are currently having to do due to physical distancing requirements during the pandemic, specifically the campaign we launched a couple days ago.
Right, a couple things. So obviously we're here. We're doing this town hall meeting. There's going to be many more of those that are coming up in the very near future. We are also doing a Facebook Live events that we are showing a series of 6 videos, as I stated. We'll show them for 3 minutes, expand upon them, and do a Q&A. Another thing we're trying to do, again, it's all about education and informing. We get impacted, and I get hit up all the time about our lack of reach, the lack of people not knowing we have a problem, the people not knowing who the fire district is, what our resource challenges are. We get impacted on a regular basis about not having good reach. We are kicking over every rock, like I said, to educate and inform. Educate and inform. Most recently, this last week, we started a texting initiative that is to educate and inform, to ask people if they're aware, if they know what it is. That we have fire service challenges. We have 9 firefighters on per day. We have 9 firefighters on per day, 3 firefighters on each engine company. At each station, we have 9 firefighters on a day, protecting 250 square miles. We should have no less than 18. And we're asking people if they're aware and if they know. And we're trying to engage with them via text. In the very near future, we're going to be engaging people via phone calls. You're going to start seeing mailers that are going to be coming into your mailbox to be able to educate and inform. We're going to continue doing these meetings as we continue to move forward. So we're trying to explore and utilize technology. We're trying to utilize and inform every medium to be able to educate and inform. That's really what it is, to do our due diligence to make sure that no one's surprised and everyone's in the understanding. So if you've seen those, Susanna's on the line. She is doing a lot of those correspondences and communications. Again, there's no ask. It is just more about, do you know? Do you want more information? Are you aware? This is a serious situation, please share. And so that's really where I work to conclude and transfer it back to President Oftedal to work towards a closing. My call to action is, if anybody needs to know, if there's any community groups, if there's anyone I can speak to, that anyone this is important to, if anyone wants to do a one-on-one, I'm open and I'm willing to be able to do so. It is so important to me that all 128,000 residents and those that work within our communities are educated and informed as we approach and move into the future. If we come up with a no-tax solution, that's wonderful. If we find ourselves in a situation where we're able to address a good portion, we have a small deficit to get us where we need to be, it's good for everyone to understand how that progresses and how it works. If we have to go out for something in the future, if the board approves to be able to address our deficits, I want everyone to be educated and informed and know that we did our due diligence trying to explore every other option. I just don't want anyone to be surprised and get into the game late on. So if there's anything I can do to educate and inform, I'm all the way down to the one-on-one over coffee. I sincerely am willing and able to do that with anybody. So please lean on me. If you live in any of the communities in my jurisdiction, I am your fire chief. I'm here and I'm called to be the subject matter expert, all things fire. I am not all-knowing. There's many things I don't know, but I'm surrounded by a lot of wonderful, educated, and very aggressive folks that are very passionate about what they do, just as I am. I also want to say this for a dose of humility on my own. I know that I come across pretty intense. In a lot of ways, I really am. I never intended to be a fire chief, to be clear. I always desired to be an engine company captain, and that's where I wanted to retire. But the need was great, and I did not think that it was fair for me to criticize unless I was willing to stand up. And that's why I'm here today. And so please forgive me if for any reason I'm not approachable, or you feel that I'm a little intense in a one-on-one forum. I let my hair down. I don't have much hair, but I do let my hair down a little bit. But I do come across pretty serious, and because it is serious. But so anyway, I just want to say that I hope that anyone that wants to communicate and wants to meet, I'm willing to do so. And I thank you for being here today. Thank you, President Oftedal, for the time.
Nice, thank you, Chief. And in close, I'd like to thank everybody for being here today with us. I'd like to thank our speakers, Mayor Helmick, City Manager Brian Montgomery. I appreciate the other elects that are on the chat with us, Councilwoman Sue Higgins, Clara Laura. Thank you for being with us, and especially Angela Lowry. Thank you for that heartfelt talk at the start of this program and getting into some of your personal situations and with not only the fire district, but even prior to coming to the city of Oakley. That being said, I'd like to direct everyone, when you do have some downtime, please visit our website, www.ECCFPD.org. The chief has, as he's mentioned, done some video series chats that are available on there to watch, and they're very quick and easy to watch. I believe most of them are probably around 3 minutes or so. I'd also like to encourage folks, I know it was on an earlier screen, but please follow us on social media. There's a social media team, which isn't not a separate group of folks. It is folks wearing 2 to 3 different hats. It's line personnel, fire captains and firefighters that are managing Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, even next door. We've got social media on LinkedIn. We've got the Pulse Point app. If you're ever hearing those fire engines the sirens going by and wondering where the fire engine's going to, you download Pulse Point on the App Store. You'll be able to see where East Contra Costa Fire is going. On top of that, if you're trained in CPR, there's a area on that Pulse Point app, and that's really why it was designed, so you could get alerted if you were in the vicinity of a cardiac arrest call. And I know a screen share feature has transitioned over, so hopefully you're still able to hear my voice. But if you are trained in CPR, please download that Pulse Point app and click that you are trained in CPR. That will alert you that there is an incident near you, and would encourage you to respond and help us out. As we do have limited resources, we do rely on bystanders to get involved and help us until we can get a fire apparatus on scene. As the chief suggested, there are Facebook Live sessions coming up. Please save the dates, which are August 3rd, 10th, 18th, 25th, and September 14th. Those start at 6 p.m. And just like we're doing today with the town hall for the city of Oakley, we're also doing the same thing for Brentwood on August 6th, Bethel Island on August 13th, Discovery Bay August 24th, Marsh Creek and Morgan Territory September 10th, and Byron and Knightson community combined on September 14th. You don't have to live in that community, but you can join us. And please encourage friends and family from those communities to join us. We will have some different speakers, hopefully some other community opinion leaders, elected officials joining us to answer questions. So once again, thank you all. We've gone a little over this evening, but I appreciate everybody being here. And I know that we're all more than willing to spend the extra time. Just like the chief suggested, I'm more than willing to sit down, have a cup of coffee, take phone calls, take text messages. Please reach out to us, and know that from the elected side, we are having a lot of conversations with our federal representatives, our state representatives, our local representatives, county supervisors, mayors, county council or city councils. We are having a lot of conversations right now. I'm spending probably 40 to 60 hours a week volunteering my time, talking with these different individuals, trying to look for solutions, so we're not just putting this on the backs of our community members, on the backs of our taxpayers. That, as the chief said, we are turning over every rock. I look at this like a puzzle, and there's a lot of puzzle pieces that are going to be needed to fix this situation. It's not just a one-stop shop, one thing gonna fix this thing. It's literally, I saw the chief counting his fingers on one of the on the Facebook Live the other day, and it's gonna literally take 6, 7 different items to fix this situation. So please stay involved, stay engaged, follow us, comment, like the posts if you would, and please help us share the message that we are challenged. We are facing these past growth issues and future growth challenges, and it is fire season, and we do have the pandemic going on. But thank you again, and I'm going to go ahead and close out this session. I really appreciate everybody's time this evening. Thank you.
Is it everyone?
It's just us chickens here now.
I'm going to figure it out. Hold on.